Father Martin had a truly special gift. He could take the inherently complex disease of addiction and break it down into concepts that made profound sense to those suffering. His ability to simplify without dumbing down was unparalleled. What set Father Martin apart was that he spoke not from the pedestal of the clergy, but from the hard-earned wisdom of living at rock bottom himself, drowning in the bottle. He knew the anguish of addiction firsthand. This made his teachings on the neurobiology and science of the disease resonate deeply, because he explained it in ways the most downtrodden soul could understand. During his time, Father Martin's treatment center was regarded as a worldwide leader, not for fancy frills, but for giving patients precisely what they desperately needed to hear. He didn't coddle them with niceties they wanted to hear. He gave them the frank truths they needed to hear, delivered with signature charm, wit, and humility. Father Martin viewed addiction as a sickness of the soul, and wasn't afraid to shine light on the mental, emotional, and spiritual brokenness at its core. With compassion, he could navigate utterly emotionally bankrupt individuals in active addiction's grip to a place of hope. To Father Martin, saving lives wasn't a business pursuit, but a genuine calling. As the addiction treatment field became increasingly watered down over the years, his voice remains crucial. A reminder to get back to treating the disease's actual root causes that rob individuals of their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. His philosophies were simple but powerful. Treat the primary problem first, and treat it completely. The best therapy came from giving patients the right information to fully understand their condition. He famously said, "The best treatment center is your last," holding firm to the belief that quality care provided in a single treatment experience could set someone squarely on the lifelong path of recovery. Through his teachings from the trenches of addiction's worst suffering, Father Martin helped heal countless lives. He embodied the idea that sometimes the wisest words come from the darkest of experiences, followed by education, empathy, and an unwavering focus on holistic healing of mind, body, and spirit.
Manipulating the children to act in a certain way, to say certain things, to refrain from saying certain things, because we don't want old dad to get upset and get angry and drink. And so we're helping old dad to continue in his illness and making the children sicker and sicker and sicker because we're teaching them to live a lie. We're teaching them to deny themselves into doing what they see should be done. A refusal to be manipulated. Well, I dare not do this, he might drink. I dare not say that, he might drink. I may be the cause of this, that, or the other thing. No. His disease causes him to drink, and I have to learn that. I am dealing with a disease that forces its victims to do something against their will, and I am not guilty. I'm not guilty. I'm just caught up into this whirlpool. A refusal to act. I have to pull myself away from this negative business. There are some things that I should do. There are some conditions I should lay down. And the more and more and more I enter into the therapy of AA and find out that of Al-Anon and find out that I'm worth something, then I put a price tag on myself. What am I worth more than this? A woman, for example, who tolerates physical beatings. A woman who tolerates infidelity. That is simply wrong. Tolerating it approves of it. Tolerating it condones it. Well, I don't believe I could support myself if I left. I've just got to stay here. I don't want to. What would you do if he keeled over dead? So often I think we use the cop-out, the easy way out, to prevent ourselves from doing something difficult. I have to separate myself from trying to fix everything. I cannot make him get sober. I cannot make my children happy in spite of themselves. I cannot make other people do much of anything. Oh, physically you can make people conform to certain behavior, but you can't change people in here. You just can't. I am my own man. I make my own decisions. It's just like POWs. They were forced through torture to say certain things and to admit certain things. But pain made them do that. Inside they weren't turned around. And so I must detach from all of this craziness. I cannot get caught up in triangles. Here is where two parents very often turn into two mutual haters because of a problem in a child. Just try not to get caught up in that. He wants to enable, you want to do the opposite. You are enabling, he wants to do the opposite, and the child makes out like a bandit. Or it's a parent, and you find children who are willing to tolerate anything. Let him drink, nothing's wrong with him. I have seen women who have been absolutely victimized by a drinking husband, and the whole situation approved by a terribly sick child who believes what the alcoholic says about the non-alcoholic. I have to refrain from allowing the alcoholic or the addict to become more and more dependent on me to keep the addiction flowing. Usually that's done with money. Usually it's done with a place where he can drug, where he can have meals and shelter. And please believe this, I do understand the difficulty. How do you put a child out of your home? And this is why it irritates me so much when I hear people say to somebody else, put him out. Somehow or other, somewhere along the line, we set basic, simple boundaries and standards. This type of behavior is intolerable, and I will not tolerate it here. You can choose, and I know it's a sick choice, it's not free, but you can choose to drug and die. But you will not do it in my sight. You will not destroy me by doing it in front of my eyes. Drinking and drugging in this house is verboten. It's out. Now, Al-Anon always teaches never, ever, ever, ever make a threat you do not intend to carry out. If you're not strong enough to do something, don't say you will. Because if you threaten a certain action, if this and that happens, and this and that does happen, and you do not carry out your verbalized intent, they've got you. They'll play you like a violin. You're in trouble. Think carefully and long before you make any kind of a threat. I know women, and I know them very well indeed. A lot of them have come to me. Well, I told him if he got drunk again, I'd leave. Have you ever left before? 16 times. Literally. Always come back. Because the alcoholic has that ingrown sense of pity me when he gets on the phone and cries. One must absolutely refuse to participate in the death of a loved one. Ladies and gentlemen, I know a man, a professional man, who went into treatment, and he got well. And when he went home, he sent, I think, 4 of his children into treatment in the same place where he got well. A girl, and then another girl, daughter, and then his twin sons. They were at a very prominent American University, and both of them were picked up on DUI charges. And he knew there was a problem there, a very real problem. They were in denial. And he sat those boys down and said this: no treatment, no tuition. I refuse, absolutely refuse, to burn $40,000 or so a year to ship you two fellas off to this university, pay travel expenses, tuition, books, to have you fritter it all away. I will not do that. So they came into treatment. And he said to them, maybe you don't or won't or can't understand what I did. But I did it because I love you, and I absolutely refuse to contribute to your death. Those boys left treatment still in denial. But there's an old saying, you don't get AA, it gets you. They went to AA and AA got them. They're now in medical school and will soon, like their father, be doctors. Education, education, education. Learn, learn, learn. Ladies and gentlemen, truth really does set you free. It sets you free from error, from fallacy, from misconception, from half-truth, from all the false and goofy things we do in our own sickness. I must learn. Most people are eager to help a loved one when they understand the loved one is not evil, he's sick. One time at a family gathering in a treatment center, a little 5-year-old girl said in this group with the family and a counselor, what can little people do? All that little child wanted to do was help her daddy get well. My friends, a mistaken notion of what detached with love means can lead people to abandon and fail to do what ought by pure charity to be done. Al-Anon does not stand in the way of intervention because they have exactly the same 12th step that AA does. We tried to carry the message. It doesn't say to those who were worthy. It doesn't say to those who picked up a phone and begged for it. But too often I have seen on the parts of Al-Anons treating the alcoholic as if he were free of will and had freedom of choice and say, well, it's up to him. I'll wait till he makes a decision himself. I have nothing to do with it. That is so insane. I'm learning that he's sick of body, mind, emotion, and soul. His whole judgment has been knocked askew. And here I'm saying, I will do nothing. He has to decide he wants to get well. Step over his body, passed out drunk, and make a sarcastic remark. I have a cousin right now who is dying of cancer. I cannot imagine his wife entering his hospital room and saying, here you are, sick again. I can't imagine that. And yet we do it with alcoholics. But the more and more I learn, not only about him, but about me, number one, I have to realize, therefore, for the grace of God, go I. That could be me, and it isn't. Why? I don't know. God knows and he won't tell. Why did he choose me to not have the problem? Why did he choose him to have it? I don't know. But he's got it and he's dying from it. What can I do to bring him to a moment of decision? You've heard me say it so often in the old chalk talk. Yes, it's true, you can lead a horse to water, but not be able to make him drink. I know that. But in the name of God, lead him to the water so that he can smell it and become thirsty. I always say, I don't care what brings people into treatment. It's our job to teach them what's wrong with them. Teach them they're sick and not evil. Ladies and gentlemen, you know as well as I do, most sick people want to be well, especially when you tell them how. I heard a man say, the greatest thing I ever learned in my life about myself was that I was sick and not evil. He did get well. And his family was thrilled. And by the way, in the midst of all of this, when you are in unspeakable pain about a child of yours who is right now in a jail cell, don't ever give up the joy of loving. Don't concentrate on the bad. Remember the days when he was a baby, when there was nothing but happiness. Remember the early days of your marriage when there was nothing but happiness. You've got to cling to something happy. My friends, no one on this earth is 1,000% wrong. No one on this earth is 1,000% right. Cling to the good. Cling to the good. You learn, I would hope, through what you learn in Al-Anon, when to act. There is a time to intervene. Whatever it is a judgmental thing. You learn when not to act. And you learn when to just walk away when the pain itself becomes unbearable. Your job, as we were saying before in another place, get yourself well through this program. Go to meetings at your home group and work the steps for you. I heard a woman who just finished treatment, family treatment in a 30-day treatment center. She said, I was forced to look at me. I have spent my life focusing on him, his shortcomings, his problem, and what his problem made him do to me. They said, now we want you to look at you. You know, every one of us is three. I am who you think I am. I am who I think I am, then there's me. The hard part for the alcoholic is to look at himself and his entire past through sober eyes. It is so painful, sometimes it's almost unbearable. But this woman said, I was forced to pull my face away from him and to look into the mirror and see the real me. And I had 30 days to examine me and what had become of me and what I had turned into. And she said, I could hardly stand it, and there were times when I wanted to walk out. And yet we expect the alcoholic to do that. You know what happens when I look at me and I become willing to be better and to be well? It's then that I learn truly the last half of this saying. I learn to love, to function for the welfare, the good of another. Here is where I try now, in spite of the screaming of the past, to teach my children that their daddy, their mother, their father, their daughter, the whatever, is sick. I spell out what this thing is. I never stand in the way of recovery. I never use bitterness and sarcasm to put down someone who already has to jump to touch bottom. I begin to function for his good. I begin to learn and apply the learning. I begin to make me a better person because the only control that I can exert over others is the influence and the inspiration of my own life. The only way I'm going to change the world is to inspire you to want to be like me. I once heard a man say about his sponsor. He said, it was not the 12 steps printed on a sheet of paper that saved my life. You could have mailed them to me and I could have died drunk. It was the 12 steps carved in his life that made me want to be like him. And just as sickness multiplies itself, don't we use the word contagious? So wellness can multiply itself because it's contagious. Be the best person you are capable of being and maybe inspire others to want to be as well as you are. Love the victim. Hate the disease, but love the victim. Someone once asked this man's sponsor, please listen to this, and we'll wind up with it. How far do you go with a drunk? And without hesitation, he said, as far as you can. And then one step more. I've seen him do that. He lived what he preached. And he inspired a whole lot of people to want to be like him. And you can do that too. We all can, if we're strong enough and want to enough. And for those of you who have an alcoholic or drug addict loved one, I certainly hope that you will want to enough.